Welcome back to The Matrix Reloaded. Yeah, real stamp of quality right there. A series where we delve into the minutiae of canon just to reveal how pointless this whole exercise is. Celebrating the series that is Doctor Who, whilst reminding you that it has absolutely zero rules or clue what it's doing. My favourite thing about a fictional franchise helmed by different writers in different eras is that they've got all the grounds covered. Familiar concepts such as William Shakespeare, the Mona Lisa, dragons, and the Loch Ness Monster, they're covered, with a down-to-earth science fantasy explanation as to why. Don't be ridiculous, Joe, dragons aren't real. Here are the aliens who inspired the mythology of dragons. Because whilst Classic Who was busy rebuking the fantasy and the fairy tales with sci-fi explanations, it would replace them with much more bizarre answers to these mysteries. A dinosaur descendant living in Scotland? That's just silly. Anyway, back to my reptile cyborg space squid story. But then, further down the line, in a series spanning 60 years, other writers will inevitably decide that the Loch Ness Monster, or dragons, or goblins, in fact, do exist. Meaning, there's a plesiosaur chilling in Scotland, and just an unrelated alien robot one as well. That's so much stranger. At that point, it's more plausible just to say vampires exist. Oh wait, they do. It's not just a multimedia comic deal either. The TV show alone is plenty capable of contradicting itself, as fans of Timelash fully well know. The dragon puppet-faced Borad was exiled to Scotland in the year 1179, where the Doctor says this.
But haven't you sent him back to Earth?
Yes. The 12th century. Where exactly did we pick you up?
The Highlands of Scotland, not far from Inverness.
He'll be harmless enough then. At least he'll have somewhere to swim for the next 1,000 years.
But won't he be seen?
From time to time.
This theory is completely wrong, or at least has been debunked in other stories, often intentionally. Now, Timelash and Terror the Zygons don't necessarily contradict each other, especially as, well, he looks nothing like it. Like, if I saw him in the street, if I was going down to the local loch with my lassies, I'd just think he was a big phlegmy man. But then, and I'm really sorry for you to have to find out like this, I found a tragedy. The Borad of 1985's Timelash was brutally murdered this week. Now that's a loss. We're distraught. Prayers with his family. Do not go gentle into that good night. Yeah, the Borat got glocked. The EDAs were brutal, and when it came to this relatively minor Loch Ness overlap transgression of canon, the taking of Planet 5 just wasn't having it, and they had 2 ex-CIA types taken out. Going out of their way in this story to disrespect a much maligned and unpopular classic adventure. Although there's a very generous use of the word classic. It feels like a drive-by shooting. Like, just leave him alone. What did Dennis Carey's The Borad ever do to you? Other than Timelash.
You're finished, Borad! Your reign of terror is over! Nobody wants you! Nobody needs you! Nobody cares!
And in this novel, they assassinated him not moments after the Doctor booped him off there, in a not-so-discreet gambit to try and plug up a canon leak. Imagine if I used a book deal opportunity to get the BBC to publish my hate fic, where I return to, I don't know, maybe Kablam, and I just kill off the characters I didn't like. It's a hilariously petty priority to me. Also, hey, it's okay for folklore to have multiple influences, guys. It's just also a very odd coincidence that this place in Scotland attracts dinosaurs. Then there's Christmas on a Rational Planet, the incredibly expensive book which I would like to one day own. And uh-oh, the Faction Paradox guys are coming over. This time claiming the Loch Ness. Claiming the Loch Ness like they claim every piece of historical cultural iconography. In this, the Loch Ness Monster is a collective species. There are multiple Loch Nessies. By the late 21st century, humanity had debunked all myths of mystery cryptids around the world to the behest of Faction Paradox's Father Stendek, who, appalled by this, elected to make his own monsters. With this kind of technology, you could cure cancer. But I don't want to cure cancer. I want to make dinosaurs. So meanwhile, a number of Loch Nessies also do exist, invented from spare dinosaur parts, trying to reinvent folk tales left over from the Zygons. It's mad, naturally. So like I said, stories that debunk legends only wind up making said legends even more bonkers in the long run, even just within the confines of this one fictional universe. Doctor Who mythos was not built to work, nor does it have to. It's a runaway train with many conductors. But it's still a runaway train. It's also on fire. And it killed the Borat. Is this? The Scaracen in comparison is pretty tame lore-wise. The Master has a pet one called Flipper, who he grew bored of and barbecued. But they're Zygon pets, and they feed off of their weird green milk. So, I've actually decided I hate the Scaracen now. Also, it appeared in the middle of the Thames. Middle of tourist London in broad daylight. But as observed by Seven in Remembrance of the Daleks, nobody seemed to want to make a big thing of it. In fact, humanity do not care about the Loch Ness Monster. Torchwood once leaked the photo by accident. You know, the photo. But nobody cares all the same. That is, but for one man. A Doctor Who legend, operating solely from his shed. I am, of course, talking about Clive Finch from Series 1, Episode 1. Oh yeah. This guy has just a whole thing. Ever since he was a boy, Clive Finch wanted to see the Loch Ness Monster, and one day, thanks to a trip in the TARDIS with 12 and Nardo, he did just that. Fuck it! Clive broke canon! About Clive. Clive Finch was a family man who ran the Doctor Who website in verse. This website is still standing in real life, if you can see it in all its 2005 glory. In the excellent Colgan book, In the Blood, the internet is the villain, like in real life, and the shady Ji Woo frequents the site and knows all about the Doctor from Clive's conspiracy nutter website, his blog. What, does the Master log on? Hey, maybe! But that's his legacy. Let's talk about the man himself. In the novelisation of Rose, Ross D. Davis made sure to expand on the origin of Clive Finch, a long-life conspiracy nut. After the disappearance of his father in the Shoreditch incident, otherwise known to us as Remembrance of the Daleks, Gary Finch was exterminated by an Imperial Dalek. Which, yeah, none of that on screen. Did the Daleks go for a little wander? Guys, there's a civil war on. Focus. His death was covered up by the government, leading Clive to learning about the Daleks and then the Doctor, with no memory that the two had travelled together before when he was a young boy. I've read this book, and I did not click that this was the same Clive from Series 1, Episode 1 Rose. Because I'm a giant fucking idiot. Anyway, it involves Nardole and the Loch Ness and the meddling monk of all people, and then 12 gave him the old memory wipe, like he'd loved doing around this time. Kind of making the whole gift pointless. What a cruel thing to do to a kid. But that's just N-Space's Clive. The Clive of another universe, one without the Doctor, had a shed instead full of Nessie sightings. But oh no! Parallel Clive and his parallel shed are also in danger, as the sun on this universe is dying. See Turn Left and the Stolen Earth. Lucky for him, our dimension-hopping Rose Tyler tracks him down for some reason, and takes him on as a companion for her woefully short-lived, but also admittedly woeful, spin-off series. What's the chances that Big Finish have a darts board in the office for like coming up with ideas? Come on, 10... 4. Dalek Story, come on, Dalek Story. Ah, fuck, I got Rose, Clive, and Jackie. God damn it. Rose saves him from this dying universe and drops him off in Pete's world, where he is now the last of his species and his dimension. Then, their Torchwood decide this random estate agent should be the new Control #1 big shot. Yeah, absolutely, this random guy, he can head up our Torchwood division. Banging stuff. We've got Immortal Time Agents and Canary Wharf, they've got Clive and Jackie on catering. And then, in the Target storybook, there's a little tale called Grounded. I found this by complete coincidence at the last minute. In this, Clive, his son Ben, and the local nut, Mr. Palmer, have a little run around in the local park, find an alien and return him to his people. "You're the best advert for planet Earth I can think of, Clive," said Mr. Palmer, before wiping his memory of the whole event. The rotten luck. I would say it is funny if it wasn't so tragic. After Clive's death, Mr. Palmer returned to his son and restored his memories of the day out. I went digging to find out if Mr. Palmer was anyone of note, but the closest I could track him down to was the unit soldier from Terror of the Zygons. And yeah, it checks out. Just what a deep dive. Thanks, Una McCormack, for making Clive the loveliest man you've ever met before, getting his head blown off in front of his own family. Not prestigious enough for the ranks of Linda, it seems. Next time you watch Rose and see a conspiracy nut get his head blown off in front of his family, think of the one-time 12 companion, survivor of his universe, 14-year-old friend the Doctor's, getting his head blown off in front of his family. What a strange and unasked for legacy, but I'll take it. Deep down, us on Doctor Who websites, we're all Clive. And, yeah. I suppose you want a fact number 3 as well. Well, did you know Davros invented the Daleks? Yeah, Dave Ross. You thought he just made the mechanoids, but no, in Unearthed Gem Genesis of the Daleks, it is revealed that he was the man who said, let's do Daleks. Huh. The more you know. See you next time. I did not mean to speak about Clive this long. Before you go, check out the playlist. There's so many of these now, I wouldn't be surprised if some had fallen through the gaps. Because remember, only true fans have seen all of them. Yeah, we're gatekeeping now. Series first.